November 2024 was a pivotal time in my life. I went to India in pursuit of my YouTube channel. It cost me tens of thousands of dollars with no return. I was taking advantage of being promised guaranteed results, and being my optimistic self, I trusted it and flew to India. The promised results did not come, and I lost a lot of my savings. So when I flew back to Canada, I had to pick up a lot of extra shifts, and this burned me out even more. And being December, I just lost my grandmother the year before in December, so I was already depressed too. One day during the last 12-hour day of my stretch, I was on break, and I ended up just saying fuck it and booked a all-inclusive resort for me and my fiancée to Mexico. So the next morning, we flew out to Mexico, and everything changed after that. I didn't know how badly I needed this. I ended up just getting off the grid, eating whatever I wanted, drinking whatever I wanted, dancing whenever I wanted, playing sports whenever I wanted, and just talking with my fiance for hours just about random crap. Every morning I would just wake up with my coffee with Bailey's at the beachside with a book. I had no worries for 5 straight days. When I ended up coming back to Winnipeg after this trip, I had more clarity than I had in years. So let's get into the meat of the video and talk about the facts of goal setting and how I went from someone that never got their New Year's resolution done to getting the job done in 2025. Did you know that only 8% of the people actually achieved their New Year's resolution by the end of the year? And I was never that 8%. I kept repeating the cycle of failing my goals every single year, over and over again. To be honest, this is the first year I actually hit all of my goals for 2025, and I'll show you exactly how I did that for each of them. So I reflected a lot on the fact that I kept missing my New Year's resolution. And then when I asked myself why this happened, the answer was pretty simple. You see, I would write a goal and just expect results. For instance, I would make a goal like making $150,000 from my job that year. At first glance, that sounds pretty cool, and it sounds like a pretty solid goal that I can actually achieve. But let's look at the details here. Is this goal really specific? Do I actually have the plan to achieve this goal? Do I even care about this goal, and do I even have a why behind it? So let's break down the flaw in this goal. I work as a registered nurse in the hospital. I make decent money, about $45 an hour, and with all the incentives with night premiums and all that stuff, it goes to about $55 an hour. So that's not bad, and my previous logic would be, in order to make $150,000, I'll just pick some overtime shifts. So let's break down the math here. With my current position at the hospital, I'm working about 75% of full time. So this translates to about 30 hours a week. Then you multiply 30 hours times 55 rate times 52 weeks, and you end up getting about $80,000 in the year. So the deficit here is now $70,000 to reach my $150,000 goal. So with the overtime incentive, you make double your money every hour you put in. For simple math, we'll say every overtime hour is $100. So as you can see, I have to do 700 extra hours just to get that $70,000. So in order to actually achieve this, I would have to do 175 additional 4-hour shifts after my 12-hour shift. There's other ways to do this as well, but let's just keep it simple. So in the past, I would be like, okay, that's pretty chill. Let's make it happen. I just got to pick up some overtime. Sounds pretty simple, but I had no idea how many shifts I needed, and I did not reflect on the fact that I'm very tired after a 12-hour shift. In addition, if I were to look at the amount of shifts I actually work in the year, I only end up working 130 12-hour shifts. So how the f am I actually going to accomplish this goal without a plan? Even if I worked 4 additional hours every 12-hour shift, I would still be behind by 45 more shifts. And with YouTube, family, and everything else going on in my life, there's no way in heck I'm gonna pick up additional shifts. So the pickle here is, I would just give up on my goal and say to myself, my health and my family are more important to me. You see, these are very powerful statements. They can literally make you rationalize anything in the world, because at the end of the day, your health and your family are the most important things. So great, March comes around the corner, and overtime after a 12-hour shift isn't even on my mind. So I end up saying bye-bye to my $150,000 goal for the year. Good night, and I will sleep like a baby, because my rationale is so powerful. So where am I actually getting with this? You need a very concrete and specific plan to make your goals happen. Rewind that and listen to it again. Otherwise, you will be like the 92% people that don't get their New Year's resolution done, just like I didn't for years. So let me show you all my goals in the past year and how I actually got them done. I will first just give you the framework, and then I will show you the real life examples from my life and how I accomplished them. For your goals to actually happen in 2026, you need these 4 steps. Step number 1, you need to write them down and know your why behind them. So let's say your goal for this year is to be a millionaire. That's pretty cool. Write it down and then think to yourself, why the f do you want to be a millionaire? Be very specific on your why and the purpose behind this goal. Or you can do whatever you want and it won't happen. Maybe it's to support your family. Maybe it's to fund a cause that you're really passionate about. Maybe it's for the fear of being in the same place in the next 5 years. But you need to elaborate here. Why is this your fear? Just to live a better life is not specific enough. Dig deeper. What about living better excites you? Is it for the time that you can spend with your kids or your family or maybe with yourself? You see, when you have to get in the trenches day after day with minimal progress, you're not going to come back if you have no why behind your goals. Find your purpose and why behind that goal. If you don't, you are going to wake up and hit snooze every single time. Number 2, have a very specific plan for your goal and write it down just beneath the goal and its why. Then look through all this every single day. So let's say we're still doing the goal of becoming a millionaire. Write down a specific plan for how you're going to become a millionaire. Where are you currently working? How much money is that bringing in yearly? What other skills do you have that you can actually take advantage of? Maybe you can end up providing an online service that you can actually scale later. Look at your network. Maybe you can collaborate with someone that actually has the resources so you don't have to start from scratch. Are you wasting your time and money on stupid shit that can be avoided? Do you have equity in something that you can take out and actually put it into this goal? You see, you can't do all this in about half an hour right before New Year's. You need to reflect on this for weeks and have a structured plan and then just lock in. Number 3, your first plan is not going to work exactly to the T. You have to adapt along the way. But here's the trick. The only way you can actually adapt along the way is if you know your why and you have a specific plan for this goal and you look at it every single day. I don't know what it is about doing this, but it kind of rewires your brain to be more adaptable towards this goal. It's kind of weird, but your behavior just starts aligning with that goal and trying to get that done no matter what. So every time you read that goal, it gets cemented in your brain and your behavior just starts following that goal. Number 4, wholeheartedly, daily, believe you can do it and trust in your capabilities. Use some of the noise as constructive feedback, ignore the rest of it, and just lock in. If this 4-step framework still doesn't make sense to you, let me show you how I used it for my goals for 2025. So for 2025, I focused on 4 big aspects of my life: my health, YouTube, finances, and my family and relationships. So for me, my first goal was around health. Just to be more healthy physically, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. The reason behind this was because I really value health and fitness. I know the times I have been sick and I wanted nothing but to get my health back. And I also know I can be the best version of myself when I'm healthy for my family, friends, and just everyone. I knew this was my calling, and in order to help others in this field, I needed to help myself first. So I ended up creating some goals here. Goal number 1 was to be a healthier weight for myself. So in order to get to that healthier weight, I knew I needed to lose 25 to 30 pounds in the year. So I already have my why, and then I ended up creating a specific plan for this goal. I knew with working almost full-time hours, I needed to do something else instead of just make meals every day. So I ended up doing meal prep 3 times a week and gym 4 to 6 times a week. The only way this was possible was first if I counted my calories. So as I was meal prepping, I would weigh my food and put it in an app called MyFitnessPal. And once I knew exactly how 300 grams of chicken looked like, it was a lot easier for me to meal prep the next weeks. And the second thing I did was I started incorporating the gym in my very busy schedule. I knew it would be very difficult to include the gym after a 12-hour shift or before a 12-hour shift. So I got a membership at the hospital. And I also cut down my gym sessions to only 40 minutes so I can actually get them done during my breaks at work. Hence, I completed my goal of getting to 10 to 12% of body fat by the end of 2025. This is how I got in the best shape of my life physically. Now let's talk about mental health and spiritual health. I knew the value of how your thoughts and random stressors in your life can actually influence your physical health. So I reflected on this a lot to find an actual way that I can care for my mental health and my spiritual health. And I came up with a plan. My first plan was just to meditate and journal for 10 minutes every single day. And every day I got this done, I would mark an X on the calendar. And I knew I could miss some days, so I gave myself a little leeway for 250 days out of 300 days. I usually ended up meditating during my deep work sessions or right before I started work, and I would journal during my first break at work. And I just ended up checking the calendar and I got 302 days out of 365 days. For next year, the goal is 310 days. For my spiritual health, my goal was to go to the Gurdwara more often. The reason for this was every time I visited the Gurdwara, I felt at peace because it made me feel like I was visiting my lost loved ones. So this year, I ended up going to the Gurdwara way more than I ever did before, and every big decision decision I have to make, I end up going there, and I always see some clarity. In the health realm, I also had some small tiny goals as well. Number one was just to run my first half marathon. Growing up, I was an athlete. I used to play all different type of sports, but I always thought of myself as not a runner. However, whenever I looked at research, there's a lot of benefits for your cardiorespiratory health when you do endurance training. So this year I made up my mind just to run my first half marathon. My reason behind it was pretty simple. Endurance training has a lot of research for your longevity and your health. And ever since high school, I always kind of wanted to run a marathon, but I just thought of myself as not a runner. So in order to change my identity from not being a runner to a runner, I ended up joining one of my friends that loves running, and we would just run once or twice every week. From there, I started incorporating a more specific plan where I started running 2 5-kilometer runs every single week, no matter what. Then slowly I started incorporating interval running as well, just to increase my pace for these runs. And then when I finally booked that half marathon, I wanted to get it under 2 hours. So I ended up tweaking my plan that way too and started doing more interval runs, and we made the job happen. I did my first ever half marathon under 2 hours. Alright, goal number 2 was to get my YouTube channel monetized. The reason behind this was pretty simple. I knew I could reach more individuals if my channel was monetized and help them grow the way I have been growing during this self-improvement journey. I've helped hundreds of people over the years, and over the years, nothing means more to me than someone ending up messaging me about how I ended up changing their life. This feeling for me is just unparalleled. It literally gives me so much rush of dopamine and energy that I can continue being a healthcare worker and also a YouTuber at the same time. So I ended up creating a plan after looking at my numbers. My watch hours were really low. They were about 700 out of 4,000, which is required, but my subs were there. So my subscriber list was at 900 and we only need 1,000. So in order to get those hours in, I started releasing a long form video every single week. Then I started increasing the frequency of my shorts to 1 short every other day. But months later, this still wasn't working, and I knew I needed to do something else. So just looking at my goals all the time, I ended up just doing some research on this, and I found another way. I realized I could include lives on my YouTube just to get those hours up. Luckily for me, I knew exactly what I had to do on these live sessions. I started doing deep work sessions because I was already doing them at the library anyways. And then people started joining this, and it helped them do their deep work sessions as well. This literally worked, and it skyrocketed my hours. I ended up getting to 4,000 hours on December 22, 2025 and sent all my paperwork. And luckily for me, December 29th, 2025 is when I got monetized, just 2 days before the New Year's. As you can see with this goal, this process is not solid. It's very fluid. It requires you to look at your goals daily and see if things are working or not. In this process, you start to recognize ways to get to your goal without being complacent with the current plan. And that happens because you're reflecting on your goal daily and recognizing that it's not working. Alright, the third realm was the finance realm. So my biggest goal here was to firstly make a 6-figure income. The reason behind that was very simple. My wedding's coming up and I wanted a house with my fiance. So I was currently working a 0.75 position, which basically means 80% of full time, and that would bring me home $80,000 a year. So in order to get to that 6-figure salary, I had to pick up extra shifts, but instead of picking up extra shifts at the hospital, I decided to get a new job, which was with the agency. So I decided to travel around Manitoba and work as a registered nurse there. And by the time it was August, I already had $80,000. I could have continued the same way and got to that 6-figure salary, but I saw a new opportunity, so I adapted, and that new opportunity was to work in the ICU at the hospital. So in this program, they end up paying you full time and you get to learn a lot. So I decided to go with this opportunity and go with career advancement along with the money too. The second part of the financial realm was actually actively investing in the stock market. I took a lot of losses last year just from YouTube, traveling and all of that, and I wanted to make up for that this year. So I got back into the stock market to actively invest like I did back in the day. My goal here was 30%, and I knew in order to get this done, I needed to be very active with my investing. So I put more funds in my direct investing account and kept them there until a home run came in my way. Luckily for me, I saw 2 home runs in my active investing time last year. The first one was when Trump was manipulating the market. It dropped a lot, so I put all that money I had into the ETFs. And then once those grew to a point where I thought I was comfortable with, I took it out, which was actually at 21%. And then I actually saw Meta just recently drop a lot, and then I put all of
of that there, and I was able to get out at 11%. So I did make 32% last year, and I was really happy with that. This year we're changing up the goals a little bit, but hoping to stay active in investing too. And now you kind of get the picture. The fourth realm that I worked on last year was life and family. Just to keep it simple, I'm just gonna go over the goals. The first goal was just spend at least one day with family a week, and that happened. It was usually a Sunday. Sometimes I had to adapt and make it a different day if I was working those Sundays. And this actually made my relationship so much stronger. It made me memories that are for life now. This was the first time in my life where I actually didn't travel as much, and I just stayed with family. Like my cousin's sister got married, and then one of my good friends got married. So I was just surrounded with family all summer, and I loved it. I wouldn't trade it for the world. So that's one of the goals that I had, and I accomplished that as well. The second was in the public speaking realm. So I was able to do a lot of speeches. The first one was at my cousin sister's wedding. I was able to MC. And the second one was at my good friend's wedding as well. I was able to MC. And both of these weddings had over 500 people. And I did have another opportunity to speak at a wellness retreat recently, and I spoke there as well. There were 50 plus people, and that was a beautiful event as well. So my public speaking skills got a little bit better too, and I'm very, very thankful and grateful for that. Another small goal I had this year was just to read more books, and I did. I was able to read 8 books by the end of the year. This year I'm actually changing that into 12 books, so 1 book a month. And my goal is to read at the end of every deep work session, and then just try to finish 1 book every month, and I'll keep track of that as well. So it'll be a lot easier to actually accomplish those 12 books this year, I feel like, just from the plan I have going forward. So the main point I'm trying to make with all of this is, number 1 is to find a reason behind your goals, and this has to be very specific. It cannot be vague. And the second one is to have a very specific goal as well. Don't just say I'm going to be healthier this year. Talk about a certain target that you want to get to. For instance, I want to get to 160 pounds. So that's a specific target. So it's a specific goal. So that's the second point. Number 3 is to have a very specific plan for those goals. And number 4 is to look at your goals every single day and start to adapt along the way, just so you can actually accomplish those goals. So let's lock in and accomplish 100% of those goals with this 4-step framework. And I'll see you next year, December 31st, 2026. Let's continue to grow together.